Well, this isn't a BMW, but it is still Euro, somewhat. We picked up this Sprinter van a couple of months ago. It does say it's a 2500, that's because it's technically a Dodge Sprinter 2500, but it's got European insides. By that I mean it is powered by a Mercedes diesel. So this Sprinter van has been sitting for a couple of years, and the reason it was sitting was because the guy was using it as a storage kind of unit almost. And we picked it up for $5,000 because it needs a lot of work. But when we first went to go look at the Sprinter van, it's very desirable. A lot of package couriers, a lot of rental companies, a lot of contractors, everybody wants a Sprinter van just because of how practical they are, and pretty much anybody can drive them. When we got there was already a line of people waiting to buy the Sprinter van, but there was one catch. It did not run. So that pretty much got rid of all the other people that were there. The dude originally wanted $6,000 for it, but we got him down to $5,000 because it needed so much work. The going rate for a Sprinter van like this in our area is between $7,000 to $10,000, some are even higher, but those are all working properly. Now this van does only have 186,000 miles, but it's been sitting for a long time and it's got a lot of broken items. So we're just gonna get to fixing, because I am sure as we're fixing things, other things are gonna be popping up that are broken as well. We've got all of the normal maintenance stuff for whenever a car or van's been sitting for so long. So we've got all of that stuff already purchased. Let's get right to fixing. The big concern for us is it was sitting for a few years and it has a lot of maintenance that needs to be caught up on. I already pressure washed the whole van and got off most of the dirt, even degreased the whole engine because it was super greasy. It is a diesel and most diesels are gonna be greasy, but this one was more greasy because every time to turn on this diesel, you have to start it with some starting spray or carb cleaner, brake cleaner, anything like that. So the previous owner would remove the actual intake, spray that stuff in there, and it would just make a whole greasy mess all over it. So we're gonna be addressing that. But when we bought the Sprinter van, we actually did drive it back home. So I got it to start in the dude's driveway and drove it back home. On the way, I did notice the transmission was also a little sticky. So once the transmission warmed up, it was getting a little bit sticky in the gears. So we're gonna have to address that as well. So the hard starts. I have a theory as to why it's starting hard. With a diesel, you can't have any air or anything like that in the fuel. When you're first starting the actual van itself, it has to have a good amount of pressure. And if there's air going through there, it's not gonna pressurize properly. There's sensors in between as well. So if that pressure is not fully there or there's air in the system, you're gonna need to use carb cleaner or starting fluid or whatever the case may be. So we're gonna be replacing all the fuel lines. We're gonna be doing the fuel filter as well. While we have this, since it is a diesel, we're gonna go ahead and look at the EGR system and clean that out as well to make it run better. I already replaced the battery. I got one of the Walmart AGM batteries. If you guys need any kind of battery for your car, the Walmart AGMs are the cheapest. You're not gonna find a cheaper battery anywhere else. And their warranty's pretty good too. Most of these AGM batteries, especially the size that this requires, which is the H8, they're made in Germany. So same place where this Mercedes engine was built. We should be good with that. Got it already installed, but I've got it disconnected until we get everything else fixed up. Then it's filled with oil. Good old diesels. Now, I've never worked on one of these before. I have worked on an OM612 before, but I've never worked on a Sprinter van. And the stuff I did on an OM612 wasn't that extensive. But we're gonna figure it out. I should really get one of those electric 3/8 wrenches. Maybe this Black Friday. But Black Friday rolls around and I'm like, I don't really need it. Okay, let's see how many bolts I dropped today. I'm gonna take this bracket off all the way. It's in the way. God! Freaking Hulk Titans. So I'm gonna remove a bunch of stuff that I might not need to, but the reason I'm doing it is for access for the fuel lines. And so I could just be able to look down there, just make sure everything is good down there as well. Ooh, look at that. We're gonna clean it all up. Oh, look at all this in here too. This reminds me of those N54s. Gotta walnut blast them. So there's bubbles going through here as I'm moving this. So my diagnosis was right about the air getting into the fuel line. It just went. It went. Oh, another one. Another one. Okay, but now I gotta take it off. All these tabs are broken on here. That probably explains why it's being like that. The fuel lines on here are held in with these plastic clips. And when the plastic clips break, The fuel lines themselves, they can actually hold themselves onto the location where they're supposed to go because of their O-ring. But when it gets pressurized, there's always a chance for it to back off. So that's why you have those plastic clips there. This one was broken, so somebody used some, I believe, a coat hanger it looks like, or mechanic's wire. More access. I ended up having to remove the engine fan because it was in the way. This was a pain in the butt to remove because it's bolted to the water pump. But I got it out, and then I ended up removing the rest of the fuel lines. We're just going to replace all of them so we don't have to worry about any air getting in them and anything like that. And they all had broken tabs anyways. Along with that, we're also going to replace the fuel filter. So I had to remove the fuel filter. Once I had that out, I got the new filter right next to it, transferred over any of the sensors, and just cleaned everything up, replaced all of the O-rings, and got all of that stuff ready to go back inside. I also spent some time cleaning up this EGR valve. It does have a weep hole to let out some of that oil that goes through there, which is going to happen naturally, but this is not a serviceable EGR valve. So the piston that comes in and out to regulate everything, there is a solid sort of kind of bushing that's on the side of it. And that bushing wears out over time, which allows that blow by to go into that weep hole. Now I wanted to take a break from cleaning, so I got to start replacing all of the hood latch cables as well as the handle, since the handle was missing and it's all one piece. I got that replaced and started on the rest of the handles that we have as well. So this door handle doesn't work at all from the outside. Luckily, it does open from the inside. Got it open. That's probably not a good sign. That probably means that somebody's been in here before trying to fix it. We're gonna be replacing the entire door handle. So hopefully it's just take the old part out, swap the new one in. Well, that came off pretty easy. So I wonder what's broken. I think it's this right here, this mechanism right here. I've never done anything on a Sprinter before, so all this is new to me as well. Well, let's go check out the new one and see exactly what's going on. So actually on the Sprinter, all of the door handles are almost exactly the same. The sliding door, the back door, both front doors. So this, I was right, this is the section that's broken. You can see where it's chipped off on here compared to this. And then you can see it just slides. So I'm pretty sure it's as simple as just sliding this one back in and we should be back to normal. And I just put that one screw. That's all there is to it. Just that one screw, everything else just slides in. But first, you know me, I gotta clean this up. So here's a quick detailing tip. All you really need for whenever you're doing work like this, when you're changing handles or any spot where you need to quickly detail something, get yourself a bottle of Optimum No Rinse. Comes in a big bottle, it's like 40 bucks I think, but you dilute that multiple times. You can use it as clay bar lube, you can use it as a quick detailer, and literally you just take 1 or 2 capfuls for a whole bottle this size. It'll last you forever, and it works perfect without damaging your paint. We're not really too worried about the paint on here, but hey, better safe than sorry. So ONR is technically a waterless wash. So you can use it to clean your car in the winter if you have it inside and you have like in an area where you can't really wash your car outside. That's what you would use. So, turns out I got the wrong handle. And I got a 2-pack on top of that because the sliding door doesn't work either. The actual handle itself, the notch where it's supposed to pull the lever when you pull this, is on the wrong side. It's on the inside when it needs to be on the outside. So I'm going to have to look into that and get the right handles. This is what happens when you buy parts without tearing everything apart first. And the handle that was on here before is also the wrong one. That's probably why it ended up being broken, because whoever was tugging on it, it just wasn't working and they just kept tugging on it until it broke. This section right here needs to be flipped. So that needs to be on that side, this little notch. We're gonna try to do it the proper way, see if I can find another handle that's proper, or we can just leave it like this. Bam. Well, I got it open. So a bunch of levers, everything is busted inside. So all this stuff was missing anyways. But it would be pretty easy to put a window right here. It almost seems like there used to be a window and somebody booger welded this panel in. So the handle for this was actually the right one, so it worked out just fine. And I also replaced the inside door handle too. So that's it for day one. Got a few spider bites, got a lot of stuff taken apart, and we gotta order more parts. So we'll get all those parts tomorrow morning, get right back at it. I wanna get this Sprinter van done in the next couple of days. See you guys in the morning. Probably gonna be afternoon. Power to crock. And we got the new. I wish it came with the truck, but no, we bought these a little while back and they've just been sitting inside. They are some cheap ones we got off of eBay Motors when they were having a sale, which is fine because we're not sure how the Sprinter van is going to behave and everything. So we don't want to go all crazy and buy, expensive tires. This should hold up just fine. This is not going on any long trips or anything, so should be good. And that's Jim for the day. So we got the wheels and tires back, and now I've been working on the engine itself. I got all the fuel lines and all that figured out. I also ended up buying new pulleys, new tensioner, new belt. Just can't help myself. While I'm there, I like to do it. It's probably why I didn't keep my used car dealership for long, because I always end up going the extra mile. Whenever I'm there, I just feel like might as well just do it, which doesn't usually make sense when you're trying to make a profit. But like I said, we're not really trying to resell this van as of now. We're just trying to get everything buttoned up, make it more of a presentable $10,000 Sprinter van. So I've got all those fuel lines ran. I already primed the system. That's one thing, whenever you're working on diesel cars, diesel engines, if you have any kind of fuel stuff that you're doing, you want to make sure you get all of that air out of the fuel system, so you have to prime it. I just used one of the suction pumps and just sucked all of the diesel fluid through all of the lines, and we're good to go there. Now I just need to button everything else back up, new tensioner, new pulley, new belt. So I've already got the wheels off, so might as well go and knock out the brakes. We've got that new door handle in for the passenger door, and then we've got a few other cosmetic things, and we're almost finished. So this Sprinter van has been sitting for a long time. That's why these brakes are as bad as they are. I drove it. I mean, they are usable. You can still use them, but they're just so rusty, and the pads and everything is really, really worn. So we're just gonna change out the rotors and the pads. Now the Sprinter van, they have a lot of different options when it comes to brakes. There's a bunch of different types of rotors that you can have. There's different types of calipers you can have, and different type of pads all correlate. So if you are doing a Sprinter van, make sure you take your wheels off and check out which brakes you have before you order them. With that being said, let's just hope I got all the right stuff. Now most rotors are held in with set screws. You really do want to be careful when you're taking off the set screws, because if they do strip, then you're gonna have to drill it out. We got lucky on this as far as the set screw is concerned, but that rotor was stuck on there. I ended up beating the rotor off with a mallet for a little bit. That didn't work, so then I soaked it with some PB Blaster and I kept beating on it until it finally let loose. When I took the caliper off, I compressed the pistons using a pry bar, which you could do that on almost most cars. On this one, however, there's this bracket that sits inside the caliper, and I just so happened to put my pry bar right on the actual bracket right here. Now, most brake pad kits come with these. The brake pads that we ended up going with was Bosch Quiet Cast. I found them on Amazon because they're cheaper, and they're still a quality pad. And the box was broken, so I'm assuming that this was just thrown out of there, or it just didn't come with it. So we're gonna have to buy another one of these, but nothing's open right now. We're not gonna find it today, so we're gonna move on to the back. So as you can see, we got the brakes back on. I did end up having to buy that bracket, and nobody has it in stock, so we had to wait almost a whole week before it got here. But we got the bracket back on. Next thing, we're gonna actually do the transmission fluid and filter. Like I said before, the transmission was a little bit sticky once it warmed up, so I'm gonna change all of the fluid, filter, even the torque converter on here should have a drain, so we're gonna drain the torque converter as well. Should take about another 8 quarts of new fluid to go in. And then we also need to do the oil change and button up the rest of that before we can turn it on. Let's get right to it. It's got a good amount of metal on it, but no chunks, so that's good. Guys, when you're messing with transmission fluid, any kind of transmission fluid that has metal and stuff in it, please wear gloves. Your skin is your biggest organ on your body. And you're just getting all this absorbed, all the transmission fluid, all this metal getting absorbed through your skin. You know a transformer? Look how dirty that is. I mean, diesel filters get like this. They just dark. Look at that. But this oil, as soon as we change it, give it like 100 miles, it's gonna look just like this. Diesel oils just get so dirty so fast. Imagine if I forgot to put the drain plug back on. Okay, that's good, that's good. That's good. We still gotta fill up more. I need to change the air filter. Took off the air box and the mass airflow sensor because I'm about to change the air filter. And I originally wasn't gonna do it until like a little bit later, but I was like, might as well since we got everything apart. And it just caked on. That whole screen that, you know, screens all the dirt and dust out from the mass airflow is caked up with leaves and stuff like that. And wait till you see the filter. But first, let's clean this out. So I'm just gonna remove the entire mass airflow from this top section so we can clean that screen. All back together, except for the fan. So I'm not putting the fan on because it's such a pain in the butt to put it on. I need to make sure all the stuff that we installed, the belt, the pulleys, all the fuel lines, make sure everything is good. So it's gonna be the first start after all of that work. Super excited. We still need to fill up the transmission the rest of the way, but we do need to have the car on. That way the transmission fluid is being pumped through the entire transmission, all the lines, torque converter, all of that. Now I finally got the right door handle. So this one has that tab on the inside like I talked about before. I got it installed, we got everything lubed up and good to go. I wasn't entirely sure why this van only came with one wiper. So the wiper arm itself was entirely missing, so I went ahead and bought a new one, got it replaced, and also replaced the wiper blades. Another thing I also ended up replacing was the blower motor because the AC system was not working just because that blower motor was out, but we got everything buttoned up. There's one more thing that we need to do, which is erase the codes. Now, XTool, they actually sent me this scanner. It's like a $600 scanner, but it does almost a lot of the factory functions. It can do coding. It can do all kinds of diagnostic work as well. They sent me this about a month and a half ago. I've been using it quite a bit on a bunch of different cars, and that's what we're gonna use on here to actually erase all the codes and make sure everything is good. Now, as far as diagnostics goes, this tool does a lot of live data and all of that as well. I'll have all that information linked down below. They did not sponsor this video or anything like that. They just sent me this tool. If I liked it, I could post it. And honestly, for 600 bucks, it's very easy as opposed to setting up all of the BMW software or the Star software for the Mercedes. So I'll just have it linked down below. You can check it out for yourself. Yeah, so the cool thing about this tool is like it's not really, you don't need to, you know, hook it up to your phone or anything. It's actually like a tablet itself. Plug it into the OBD2 port and you're good to go. It has all those like factory updates and all of that like you would probably get from like, you know, a more expensive scanner like Autel, Snap-on, any of those. I ended up scanning all of the modules on the car and just reset all of the codes. Before we could drive it on the road, we gotta make sure it's road legal. So I just had to replace all of the non-working lights. We got the fender markers, all of the tail lights. I actually bought them from carparts.com because they had the cheapest ones out of everybody. These are made by Depot and it came with the bulb holders and everything. So make sure you're price shopping, and carparts.com is definitely a good place to check. They have a lot of these items, even genuine items as well. So I also replaced the third brake light on the very top, which I didn't show. So as with any project in our lives, we got the Sprinter van all finished up, started driving it around, and then one day it just would not turn on. No matter how much you cranked it, it wouldn't turn on. Ended up being that 2 of the injectors are bad. That could just be from sitting over that long period of time. It could be from bad diesel. It could also just be that injectors do wear out. This Sprinter has 181,000 miles now. So that was one of the issues. Another issue that we noticed is the EGR valve is leaking a lot of oil coming out from like the little vent vent hole that's on the side, which is a common issue on these sprinters as well. But those EGR valves are super expensive. A lot of places don't have them in stock, so we weren't able to get that. But for the injectors, we were able to reach out to carparts.com. They sent us over 2 of the injectors so we can replace the ones that we need to. Now, one way that I determined how the injectors were bad is very simple. If you have one of these engines, a OM612 Mercedes diesel engine, we did a leak off test off of the injectors. So you remove all of the return fuel lines off the top of the injectors. You put little plastic tubes, acrylic plastic tubes. You put them on each one of the injectors. You disconnect the camshaft position sensor, and then you crank the engine over for about 15 to 30 seconds. Whichever one of the lines have a lot of diesel fuel in it, those are the injectors that are bad. That just means that that fuel is bypassing all of the injectors. The seals are worn internally, and it's not able to build up the pressure that it needs for it to actually turn on. Now we're gonna be stuck with the tedious task, hopefully not, of removing the injectors. As you might have seen on social media, people have a difficult time removing seized injectors for direct injection engines as well as diesel engines. Fingers crossed, our luck is good and we're able to take them off. I did soak everything down with some PB Blaster, and then I was able to still turn the sprinter on. The way I was able to do that was by using starting fluid, which I do not recommend on a diesel. You can try using diesel fuel itself and spraying it down into the intake area and see if that helps, but for us, we had to use starting fluid. So I got it soaked with PB Blaster. I turned on the sprinter van and got everything warmed up. So hopefully it comes off in one shot. Let's get right to it. Oh, easy peasy. Look how dirty the tip is and this whole section. We're gonna try to clean it up. I don't see the copper washer that should be on the end of this. It might be stuck inside the engine, and if that's the case, we're gonna have to figure out a way to pull it out. That's pretty deep. I would say that's a good 5-6 inches. Don't forget to get out the old seal. You don't want to double seal it. And then another thing you do want to do is you want to measure the thickness of the two. The old one should be a little bit thinner, but not too much. You're gonna need a long pick like this in order to get it out. And you want to make sure you don't scratch up that whole barrel or where the injector seat is. You don't want to scratch any of that stuff up. So just be very careful and gentle. So I got the first cylinder replaced, and this one went very, very smoothly. The only thing that took a long time was cleaning everything out. I used a whole bunch of Q-tips. I used the old hold down bolt. I cleaned that up and I just kept running it through that hold down bolt threads to get all that rusty solution out of there. Some of that was PB Blaster as well. Just got all that debris cleaned out. We got the whole barrel for where the injector goes. We got all of that cleaned out as well. I just used a microfiber and just used a flathead and just got all up in there. One thing you want to make sure is that seat of where that injector head sits and where that copper washer sits. You want to make sure that's nice and clean and not damaged, because if it's damaged, you're not going to get a good seal on there and you're going to mess up a lot more things, because that's a lot of pressure underneath that area. So we got everything cleaned up, got that first injector done. Hopefully the other one goes smoothly. So this injector came out nice and easy, but then we ran into some issues because there was some debris that was right caught up in this section right here, which you couldn't see. So as soon as I lifted up the injector, that debris fell into the hole, and it was actually a piece of plastic from the broken engine cover. We spent like 30 minutes trying to get it out, and I just put air in there and it popped right out. Then we spent another 30 minutes cleaning everything. Now we're ready to put everything back together. We've got the hold down bolt already in there on both. Now we need to hook up the fuel lines. Let's see if she turns on. So before, it would not turn on at all like that. I didn't even prime the fuel system or anything. We replaced the 2 injectors, just went straight to firing, and it works. So I would call that a success. It's really late at night, so we're not gonna be able to pull it out right now. We're gonna call it a night. We're gonna take it on a test drive tomorrow and see how she runs. So it's been a few weeks since the last time we saw the Sprinter van, and everything's been going well, but it has been sitting for the last week. Let's see if it turns back on. All right, let's see. That's what I'm talking about.
Any lights?
Yeah. The lights are for the glow plug, so I think one of the glow plugs is bad. But let's talk about it a little bit. Let's drive it around and talk. So we're driving it, and everything feels good. The brakes are good, like we replaced. Everything works, all the door handles work. But the last week it's been sitting, so it even turns on just fine. Now here's the thing, we bought the Sprinter van for about 5,000 bucks, and we ended up spending a lot more than I originally thought we were gonna spend. We did have to get those injectors, which Car Parts sent us, but there was a lot of other things that we replaced, as you guys saw. But now the Sprinter van is in good condition, is ready to sell, still needs to be cleaned up a little bit, and still needs a few other minor things, you know, fixed or replaced. But realistically, anybody could get in this thing and drive it wherever they want at this point. Now that's the thing, when you're going to flip cars, you have to be very conscious that sometimes you're gonna end up spending a lot more than you think. And mainly because if you're trying to do it right. You know, obviously we could have got the car running for the most minimum amount of money and then sold it and made a quick buck on it, but that's not the right way to do it. And whenever I'm doing something, I would rather do it the right way. We're not gonna end up selling this as of right now, maybe in the future, but I think we're around a $9,000 to $10,000 value at this point, especially once we clean it up a little bit. Besides that, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do ever end up buying a Sprinter van, hopefully some of the tips and tricks I shared will help you. And if you do decide to ever buy a car to flip, just do your research beforehand. Make sure you look at all the parts prices, look at all the common problems, and look at what parts you can actually find and which ones are not in stock. For example, on the Sprinter van, the EGR valve, nobody has it. And the people that do want over $1,000 for it. So we're gonna wait until we find one for a good deal, and then we'll replace it. But like I said, everything is still running and driving fine. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you guys need any one-on-one diagnostic help, make sure to check out www.shoplifetv.com. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll do another car video like this where we buy one for cheap and try to flip it and actually end up trying to sell it instead of keeping it. That's my problem. As you guys know, we have a bunch of cars just because I'm a hoarder when it comes to that. I don't like selling. I like fixing, I just don't like selling. Anyways, once again, thanks for watching, guys. See you guys in the next one.